Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. It's Belinda here. It's time for collage stories. So if you missed last week's, don't panic because there wasn't one last week. I just needed to take a little break. So I allowed myself to do that, but we are back this week with collage stories. So we're using the prompt that I pulled from 2 weeks ago, which was from Selina. So the prompts were native animal, steampunk, a place, something from your desk, and poetry. And I have pulled a random card out of my prompt cards, and what I turned up with that was hand or hands. So that's what we're working with today. And a challenging list, but a really fun list. I think you called it wacky, Selina, and you apologised for such a wacky list. It's actually been really fun to pull a story together that weaves these very interesting prompts together. So let's put our little title aside, grab out our sheet of paper. It's a bit crinkled and creased and what have you, but it's all good. So native animal, I am going with a kiwi. Obvious choice, but I wanted to go with a kiwi. Steampunk, that was tricky. I have to admit that was a little tricky. And what I found was this image of an astrolabe, which is for measuring time, the stars, direction, all that sort of stuff. I actually looked it up because it was like, I've heard of it before, I've seen pictures, but it's like, what was it actually for? What did it do? And I was kind of right in what I thought. But it's very much a steampunk sort of image, don't you think? With the dials and it's made of metal. It's, you know, it's fun. So that's my nod to steampunk. A place. I have this image here of the place is actually Waihi Beach up in the North Island. There's a wee creek here, and then there's the beach, of course. And I thought that was nice and fitted the Kiwi story. Very important. It kind of works for me. Something from your desk. Well, I had a lot of options here. I keep a lot of stuff on my desk, and every time I do a video I shift it off and then bring it back. So I literally had dozens of things I could have chosen, but I've chosen this piece of masterboard. It is actually backed, but you know, we're going to use that in our collage. Poetry, I've got a page here out of a poetry book. And then hand or hands, I've got this image here of a girl holding a weapon. I think she's actually clay shooting, but yeah, I think I didn't actually read the article, but I think she's clay shooting. So that's our prompts. Let's have a look at how we're going to arrange them. I haven't pre-composed this collage. I've literally only just pulled together all the elements and then I turned the camera on. So I'm thinking the poetry in the background maybe. And our kiwi. Our landscape. I'm wondering about actually cutting this down a little bit. Don't need all that greenery, do we? So I'm just going to do a kiss cut. I'm not going to do a fussy cut. Just going to take a few excess bits off. Nice, simple, quick kiss cut. Done. The astrolabe maybe somewhere up there, and I need to think about, and maybe a bit of masterboard down there. I've left the information on about the kiwi because I thought that was interesting. Where do I want the masterboard? something like that. And where's my prompts going to go? I'm actually thinking down here, or do I want to put them here? If I moved her up a little bit, I think it hides a little bit too much of the masterboard, so I think we're going to go with this. Kind of move them to the side, try and remember how everything kind of fitted together. So let's start with the poetry. I think I'll stick with the side I've got here because it says, but then the thrushes sang. Which, the only reason I'm choosing that is because we're going with a kiwi and it's a bird, and thrushes, they're birds. So, you know, random, like completely meaningless connection there. It has nothing to do with the story really. But just, I like the fact that it ties in some way. Although I could also say that about this side because it's got my garden, so it talks about a garden. Although this one also talks about death, and it's amazing. These old poetry books, so many of the poems are really sad or morbid, morose. And it's like you're trying to look through for a poem and it's like death is mentioned so commonly. It's like, my goodness, couldn't they write happy? And even in love poems where it talks about love, often they talk about death as well. It's like, goodness people, can't you just keep it light and fluffy? You know, not for everything, but so many of them talk about death. And it's like, no, don't want that one. No, don't want that one. No, that one's too icky. Yeah, it must have been a thing from that era, I think. Okay, let's pop on that next. Yes, there is even a room in the story for this piece of masterboard, because in the story it's not going to be a piece of masterboard. It's going to be another object. Oh, that sounds so mysterious, doesn't it? All will become clear, my friends. Right, it's quite a thick piece because it's got the layer of the phone book. It's got the scrapbook papers on top, and then it's got the backing paper on the back. So quite a few layers there. Right, I think I want her on top of the corner there, or do I want her underneath? But I do want this one under there. Okay, so let's put that one on first. I haven't thought of a title for this story. I didn't even give it a thought. I'm sure something will come to me, even if it's after recording the video. Try and keep it straight. Okay, that's on there. Right, did I decide which way I was having it? I think on top. Did I have it on top? I think it looks better on top for some reason, or not. Maybe not. No, I'm not going to put it on top. I'm going to put it under the kiwi piece. Minutest decisions that I'm labouring over here. So how was your week, my friends? Did you get up to anything really fun or exciting? As I'm recording this, we've got an appointment tonight to see the jeweller about the jewellery work that we're getting done on my rings and my mother-in-law's engagement ring. So I don't know that my rings will be done yet, because we only saw her on Sunday about it, about getting them done. So I don't think the rings will be ready. But we've come across some more items that we can use to offset the cost. and another 1 or 2 potential projects for them to do, depending on the cost of that. So very fun. And as I'm recording today, it is our 26th wedding anniversary. Isn't that fun? So we were going to have takeaways for tea, but our appointment with the jeweler is like 5:45, so hubby can't pick up takeaways because he doesn't get home till 5:30. So there's no point picking up takeaways because we wouldn't have time to eat them before our appointment. And then we definitely won't be cooking, or I won't be cooking, because, you know, I've got food bank this afternoon. So I won't be cooking. So I don't know what we're actually going to do for our tea, for our anniversary. But that's okay. We might just have to go out and have takeaways out somewhere in Amberley, which would be a very rare thing. We never do it. So yeah, might be a first. And that's a good way for an anniversary, isn't it? To do a first, something we haven't done before in our very own town. Right, and then I think the astrolabe just up the top there. And I think the title for this is going to be Adventures of a Little Brown Kiwi. We have a few different breeds of kiwi, and this one is the brown kiwi. And I should have looked up exactly where the brown kiwi lives, but I'm just going to make it up. I'm not going to go factual, I'm just going to make it up. So bear with me, please, if you're like, well, that's not right because they don't live there or whatever. It's like, I'm not too worried. It's a story. It's pretend, okay? It's pretend. And for you, those of you outside of New Zealand, you wouldn't know either way anyway, so, you know, no problem. Okay, so we have our collage. Just going to check we've got everything. So we've got native animal, steampunk, a place, something from your desk, poetry, and hands. You can see both hands in that. Okay, so it's one hand or more than one hand. Either way is fine. Okay, so this is the story, The Adventures of Our Little Brown Kiwi. So our little brown kiwi lives right up the top of the North Island. But he's rather an adventurous fellow, like he's hanging out with his family, he's going around at night time. They are a nocturnal bird, in case you weren't aware, they're nocturnal. So at night he's hunting bugs with his family and beaking around the forest floor, hunting for food and sleeping during the day, you know, just leading a regular Kiwi life. But he yearns for adventure. It's like there must be more. And he had heard about another family of brown Kiwis that lived down in Waihi Beach. And he was like, well, I would quite like to visit that family of Kiwis. They might be relatives. They might be related to me. And it would be nice to go for a holiday at the beach, because even Kiwis like to take a little holiday every now and then. So he comes up with a plan. And he sets off with his astrolabe that he picked up from the forest floor one day that was dropped by a hunter. He picked it up and he liked it, so he kept it. And so he wears it. It's got a loop on it, so he wears it around his neck. And he's known around the forest as the astrolabe Kiwi. They think he's a bit weird. But so he's got his astrolabe, so he uses it for navigation to get down to Waihi Beach, which is, I think, around Auckland somewhere. I'm not sure. I didn't look it up. I should have looked it up. Never been there, so don't really know. But it's in the North Island. And so he heads out one night to go to Waihi Beach. Now, it's quite a wee way for a little brown Kiwi. He's only a small fellow and he can only travel at night. So it's a long, long way, and he's got to eat on the way as well. So he's got to do some hunting and fossicking for food. So he's meandering his way down as as far as he can every night. He moves some, hunts some, and then he sleeps during the day somewhere quiet and cozy. Well, dear little brown Kiwi, he starts to hit the outskirts of the city of Auckland. He's never seen such things. It's busy, it's loud, it's noisy, with cars and people and horns and buzzes, and it was really distressing for the poor Kiwi. It was like, so much noise, I can't handle this. His level of noise is the chirp of bugs and the swish of the wind in the trees. That's his level of noise, and the cry of owls, that sort of thing. So he's like, this is driving me mad. I can't stand this. And he runs, trying to get away from it. And he spots a blanket that's blown off a washing line somewhere in Auckland, and it's caught up in amongst some grass. And he spies this blanket and he dives under the blanket. So our masterboard is the blanket. And he dives under it and pulls it around his head and tries to shut out the noise. And so he spends a night there. He doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to face those noises, and he just sleeps. So he spends a stressful night, and then he finally gets to sleep during the day and sleeps a day. And the next night he wakes up and the noise, it's still there, definitely still there, but it's not quite so intense. He feels a little bit more happier with it, that it's not so bothersome, but he still doesn't want to face it. So he stays another night, and he just pokes his beak out under the edge and catches a few flies and other bugs that might come close. So he's a bit hungry too, because he's not getting a lot of food. But he stays under the blanket another night and another day. And then the next night, his tummy's rumbling. He hasn't had enough food. He's like, I can't stay here. I've got to go. So he fluffs his feathers out, bolsters his self, and can you tell I'm actually doing the actions? And it's right, I'm going to keep on my journey. It's only noise. I can cope with this. So he carefully sticks his beak out and then his eyes, and he looks around. The coast is clear. He can't see any danger. And he wanders out from under the blanket. And he just takes a moment as the noises intensify without the covering of the blanket, and he just kind of goes, it's okay. It's just noise. It's okay. It won't hurt me. And he gives himself a bit of a pep talk. And so he checks his astrolabe, and it's like, okay, I know which direction I need to go. And off he wanders again. So he wanders through the city, and he's coming out the other side. And so he's been through the real intense noise, and it's starting to soften as he comes out into the suburbs. And he's starting to see more greenery, and he's starting to feel a bit happier. Things are a bit calmer, a bit easier. And he comes to this paddock, and it's the first paddock that he's seen, field. If you don't know what a paddock is, a green field. Comes to the first green field or paddock that he's seen since he left home. And it looked lovely, looked luscious, and there were lots of beetles and bugs and spiders and all sorts of things. I don't know if they eat berries, but there were berries in one corner of the paddock. So he might have eaten berries, I don't know. Again, I should have researched some of this. Never mind. So he's wandering across the paddock, and it's quite a big paddock. And he got to it late in the day. So partway across the paddock, he was like, okay, this is a good place to have a wee nap for the day. So he settles down in a tuft of grass and makes sure he's, nicely hidden, and goes to sleep as the sun rises. And he was blissfully sleeping, and then about mid-morning, he was startled awake by this very, very loud noise. And his heart went boom out of his chest. He was like, oh, it was so loud. And he was like, what was that? And he woke up and he put his head up and he blinked because it was so bright. His eyes are built for dark, not for light. But it was shocking. And then it came again. Boom! And another one. Boom! And he looked up towards where the sound was coming from. And here was a line of people shooting. They were clay shooting. And that paddock was where they did their clay shooting. And it frightened him so very badly. So he picked up his astrolabe and he picked up his feathers and he ran. And he ran to the edge of the paddock and he kept going. It was daytime, but he was so scared and it was so loud. And he thought the city was bad, but this was worse and this was hurting his ears. So he ran and ran and ran until he could only just hear a dull boom from the gunshots. By this stage, he was in a little more built up area. So he had come through some country area and he was in another little suburb. There was a few more buildings and he found a quiet little corner of an alleyway and he sat down hidden behind a rubbish bin and he slept. And he slept exhausted from fear, exhausted from running so far and so fast, and didn't even know if he'd gone in the right direction. Poor little brown Kiwi. So here he was in the alleyway, hidden. And then he stayed there the rest of that day, and he still needed to rest up that night. He just didn't feel like going out anywhere. He was really nervous and afraid. So he stayed hidden in the alleyway. And then he stayed there the next day. And then the next night, he was like, right, I'm hungry again. I need to keep moving. I wish I'd never started on this journey, though. So he peeked his beak around the corner and testing, making sure no one was around. And he very carefully crept to the end of the alleyway where the street was. And he stood there watching, making sure that he was safe. And he started to notice something. He could hear someone, and it sounded really beautiful to him. It was gentle and melodic, and it was comforting, and there was a beautiful glow coming from the building beside the alleyway. And he went up to the window, and he looked through the window, and inside he could see a man sitting on a bar stool. But it wasn't a bar, it was a bookshop. And this man was sitting on a bar stool in front of a row of seats that were filled with people, and they were all quiet apart from this one man who was busy reciting poetry. It was a poetry reading. So dear little Kiwi, he just loved this sound. It was such a beautiful sound after all the harsh, noisy sounds he had experienced. The soft, melodic flowing of the poetry just made him smile. It was a happy sound. So he sat there and he just enjoyed it. And he sat there for an hour or two until the poetry reading was finished. And then when they finished, the people started to move, and he got a bit nervous that people were moving. They were talking, the volume went up a little bit, and the melody of the poetry had stopped. So he thought, it's time to go. So he turned away from the bookshop and he wandered off, checking his astrolabe to check that he was going in the right direction. And he wandered off, and it turned out that when he ran from the gunshots, he had run in the complete correct direction. And he turned a corner and he could see the beach spread out ahead of him. He had reached Waihi Beach. So he waddled off down and had a big long drink out of the creek, and it tasted so good and so pure. And then our dear little friend went in hunt of his family Kiwis. So there we go. There is my story today for this week. I hope you enjoyed the wee story of our little brown Kiwi on his big adventure. He went through some things, didn't he? Okay, so that's that. Now let's pull the prompt for our next one next week. So I'm going to close my eyes here, just give these a bit of a shuffleish sort of thing as much as I can. Drop them. I normally drop them, don't I? Quite normal for me to, because they don't really shuffle very well. So I'm just kind of splitting, and yeah, you can see what I'm doing. I can't because I've got my eyes closed, so I don't know why I'm describing what I'm doing. Is it for my sake or yours? I don't know. Right, we're going to stop there, and I'm going to take this one. No, I've got more than one. I think that's it. Yep, just one. Okay, this is our prompt list for next week from Robin. So I've missed out an asterisk. That was interesting. Let's put a little asterisk in there. It's very dark compared to the rest of them, but that's okay. So balloon, doll or toy, flight, friends, and imagination. Ooh. I'm going to have to use my imagination on fulfilling that prompt. Okay, so that's for next week. This is this week's prompt. This week's collage from the prompts from Selina. Thank you, Selina. Thank you, Robin, for those prompts. And I hope you enjoyed the story. If you want to give the collage a go, you can interpret the prompts however you like. You do not have to do a story. Please let me, what am I trying to say? Encourage you to do the collage. You don't have to do a story. If you want to do a story, that's great, but you do not have to. It's my thing. I love putting a story to the prompts, but you absolutely don't have to. And if you want to participate and post on social media, then use the hashtag collagestories so I can find what you made. Thanks for joining me. Have a beautiful weekend, whatever you get up to, and I will see you again on Monday. Bye, guys.